Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Ferguson. I am going to read to you again today. I'm very happy to be with you. This is another great speech. We can classify it as a speech, I think. It is a closing argument by Clarence Darrow from 1926, May 19th, 1926, to be specific, in Detroit, Michigan. Darrow was a prominent and famous attorney. He was known for standing up for the little guy, I guess, the underdog. And this is a very, very powerful speech. In Detroit, in the 1920s, there was a great deal of racial tension, to put it kindly. There was a lot of reprehensible behavior against Black people at that time, of course, in a lot of places, and still is, but in this case, many African Americans were driven out of their own homes in Detroit, and a couple of brothers, last name of Sweet, Ossian and Henry Sweet, they became involved in an altercation of sorts, but they were basically in their homes, and violent attempts to get African Americans out of their homes were taking place in their neighborhood. Apparently, Henry Sweet, the younger of the two brothers, Ossian was a doctor, medical doctor. Henry was his younger brother, I believe, basically a boy, and apparently fired a shot out of the home. And Darrow, after a trial against Ossian Sweet was dismissed due to a mistrial, the case was retried with Henry Sweet as the sole defendant because he was allegedly the one who fired the gun. So this is Clarence Darrow's closing argument in defense of Henry Sweet in Detroit, Michigan, May 19th, 1926. I encourage you to sit back and relax in this case to the extent that it particularly allows you to take in the words. I hope that your reaction to the circumstances is not a relaxed one, but I hope that you are personally able to relax and listen to this reading. Putting on my uniform. Oh, Archie the Australian Shepherd is in fact with me today, hanging out. So glad to have him as always. We'll put him up on the screen. We come now to lay this man's case in the hands of a jury of our peers. The first defense and the last defense is the protection of home and life as provided by our law. We are willing to leave it here. I feel as I look at you that we will be treated fairly and decently, even understandingly and kindly. You know what this case is. You know why it is. You know that if white men had been fighting their way against colored men, nobody would ever have dreamed of a prosecution. And you know that from the beginning of this case to the end, Up to the time you write your verdict, the prosecution is based on race prejudice and nothing else. Gentlemen, I feel deeply on this subject. I cannot help it. Let us take a little glance at the history of the Negro race. It only needs a minute. It seems to me that the story would melt hearts of stone. I was born in America. I could have left it if I had wanted to go away. Some other men, reading about this land of freedom that we brag about on the 4th of July, came voluntarily to America. These men, the defendants, are here because they could not help it. Their ancestors were captured in the jungles and on the plains of Africa, captured as you capture wild beasts, torn from their homes and their kindred, loaded into slave ships, packed like sardines in a box, half of them dying on the ocean passage, some jumping into the sea in their frenzy, when they had a chance to choose death in place of slavery. They were captured and brought here. They could not help it. They were bought and sold as slaves to work without pay because they were black. They were subject to all of this for generations until finally they were given their liberty so far as the law goes. And that is only a little way because, after all, every human being's life in this world is inevitably mixed with every other life. And no matter what laws we pass, no matter what precautions we take, unless the people we meet are kindly and decent and human and liberty-loving, then there is no liberty. Freedom comes from human beings rather than from laws and institutions. Now, that is their history. These people are the children of slavery. If the race that we belong to owes anything to any human being or to any power in the universe, they owe it to these black men. Above all other men, they owe an obligation and a duty to these black men that can never be repaid. I never see one of them that I do not feel I ought to pay part of the debt of my race, and if you gentlemen feel as you should feel in this case, your emotions will be like mine. Gentlemen, you are called into this case by chance. It took us a week to find you, a week of culling out prejudice and hatred. Probably we did not cull it all out at that, but we took the best and the fairest that we could find. It is up to you. Your verdict means something in this case. It means something more than the fate of this boy. It is not often that a case is submitted to 12 men where the decision may mean a milestone in the history of the human race. But this case does. And I hope and I trust that you have a feeling of responsibility that will make you take it and do your duty as citizens of a great nation and as members of the human family, which is better still. Let me say just a parting word for Henry Sweet, who has well nigh been forgotten. I am serious, but it seems almost like a reflection upon this jury to talk as if I doubted your verdict. What has this boy done? This one boy that I am calling out from all of the rest and whose fate is in your hands. Can you tell me what he has done? Can I believe myself? Am I standing in a court of justice where 12 men on their oaths are asked to take away the liberty of a boy 21 years of age who has done nothing more than what Henry Sweet has done? Gentlemen, you may think he shot too quick. You may think he erred in judgment. You may think that Dr. Sweet should not have gone there prepared to defend his home. But what of this case of Henry Sweet? What has he done? I want to put it up to you, each one of you, individually. Dr. Sweet was his elder brother. He had helped Henry through school. He loved him. He had taken him into his home. Henry had lived with him and his wife. He had fondled his baby. The doctor had promised Henry the money to go through school. Henry was getting his education to take his place in the world, gentlemen, and this is a hard job. With his brother's help, he has worked his way through college up to the last year. The doctor had bought a home. He feared danger. He moved in with his wife, and he asked this boy to go with him. And this boy went to defend his brother and his brother's wife and his child and his home. Do you think more of him or less of him for that? I never saw 12 men in my life, and I have looked at a good many faces of a good many juries. I never saw 12 men in my life that, if you could get them to understand a human case, were not true and right. Should this boy have gone along and helped his brother, or should he have stayed away? What would you have done? And yet, gentlemen, here is a boy, and the president of his college came all the way from Ohio to tell you what he thinks of him. His teachers have come here from Ohio to tell you what they think of him. The Methodist bishop has come here to tell you what he thinks of him. So, gentlemen, I am justified in saying that this boy is as kindly, as well-disposed, as decent a man as one of you 12. Do you think he ought to be taken out of his school and sent to the penitentiary? All right, gentlemen, if you think so, do it. It is your job, not mine. If you think so, do it. But if you do, gentlemen, if you should ever look into the face of your own boy or your own brother, or look into your own heart, you will regret it in sackcloth and ashes. You know, if he committed any offense, it was being loyal and true to his brother whom he loved. I know where you will send him, and it will not be to a penitentiary. Now, gentlemen, just one more word, and I am through with this case. I do not live in Detroit, but I have no feeling against this city. In fact, I shall always have the kindest remembrance of it, especially if this case results as I think and feel it will. I am the last one to come here to stir up race hatred or any other hatred. I do not believe in the law of hate. I may not be true to my ideals always, but I believe in the law of love, and I believe you can do nothing with hatred. I would like to see a time when man loves his fellow man and forgets his color or his creed. We will never be civilized until that time comes. I know the Negro race has a long road to go. I believe that the life of the Negro race has been a life of tragedy, of injustice, of oppression. The law has made him equal, but man has not. And after all, the last analysis is, what has man done, and not what has the law done? I know there is a long road ahead of him before he can take the place which I believe he should take. I know that before him there is sorrow, tribulation, and death among the blacks, and perhaps the whites. I am sorry. I would do what I could to avert it. I would advise patience. I would advise tolerance. I would advise understanding. I would advise all those things which are necessary for men to live together. Gentlemen, what do you think of your duty in this case? I have watched day after day these black, tense faces that have crowded this court, these black faces that now are looking to you 12 whites, feeling that the hopes and fears of a race are in your keeping. This case is about to end, gentlemen. To them it is life. Not one of their color sits on this jury. Their fate is in the hands of 12 whites. Their eyes are fixed on you. Their hearts go out to you, and their hopes hang on your verdict. This is all. I ask you on behalf of this defendant, on behalf of these helpless ones who turn to you, and more than that, on behalf of this great state and this great city, which must face this problem and face it fairly. I ask you in the name of progress and of the human race to return a verdict of not guilty in this case. And that was Charles Darrow in his final argument on behalf of Henry Sweet on May 15th, 1926, as Sweet merely attempted to defend himself and his family in his home. And I won't leave you hanging or force you to do the research that will tell you that Sweet was acquitted, that Darrow, in fact, won the case. And with that, I thank you very much for watching and for listening.